You know what recency bias is? I imagine you do. It's pretty self-explanatory. You get caught up in what's happening now, and you allow that to shape your perception or opinion of someone or something that has a long track record. And this is what has happened with Lincoln Riley. If you peruse a variety of mediums, Lincoln Riley, I don't think is thought of incredibly highly right now, which is strange. Allow me to read to you his win totals as a head football coach in college football. Why don't we exclude the COVID year? I mean, he went 9-2, but that was a weird season. Here's what Lincoln Riley has done. 12-2, 12-2, 12-2, 10-2, 11-3, 8-5. There are certain vocal college football fans out there, perhaps in the comment section, who would lead you to believe that Lincoln Riley is just no good as a coach. I don't know where we're getting that perception. Like, at all. Well, his teams don't play any defense. You know who they hired this offseason, right? A guy who was just the defensive coordinator of a head coach who also does not give a rip about defense. That's Chip Kelly, who turned them into a defensively led team. They have made a variety of transfer portal moves this offseason to bolster that particular side of the ball. I don't expect them to be elite. But is that what was missing from USC's team last year? When you watched those Lincoln Riley teams, not just last year, but the year prior when they couldn't beat Utah, or teams at Oklahoma that gave up a few too many points, were you ever watching them and thinking, they need an elite defense? Nope. You watched them and thought, they just need an average defense. They just need... Look, Alex Grinch, I'm sure, is a nice guy. He's not a good defensive coordinator. He just isn't. And I think huge elements as to why their defense struggled last year was far less about the talent that they had or that they didn't have, and was far more about the scheme, the play calling, and the coaching. And some of this falls on Lincoln Riley, of course. And USC fans, I'm sure, are tired of hearing about the Alex Grinch defenses. Well, you don't have to hear about them anymore. I don't see how USC's defense isn't better than last year. And the only question I have is, can Miller Moss sustain the production that we saw him show he's capable of putting on the field in the Holiday Bowl against a really good defensive team in Louisville? He tore it up. That was one game. I almost, not saying I'm here mentally, I'm saying I'm this close to having more questions about Miller Moss than USC's defense this year. Is that the hottest take? USC fans, you tell me. You tell me if that's a hot take, to have more doubts about Miller Moss, who has showcased his talents in one game in a major way, than D'Anton Lynn, who I have an entire season's worth of data to look at and say, this dude's really good. This guy is very good. And then that brings us back to Lincoln Riley, who went 8-5 last year and is apparently just no good. He's not a good coach. 12, 12, 12, 10, 11, 8. Can you give me a list of college football coaches? This is the Dabo Swinney element of it as well. Dabo Swinney's a bum. He doesn't take any transfers. He and the service academy is the only schools to not take a transfer this offseason. Even Stanford has taken a transfer or two, and Clemson has not. But there are those who would lead you to believe, most of them, I think, a vocal minority, but it's worth calling out anyway, because they're a part of the college football discourse and landscape, who would lead you to believe that Dabo Swinney just had a horrifically bad, awful, no good, terrible college football season last year. Let's put aside the bowl game, because those can be questionable judges of a team or coaches or players' capability, given the number of quality players that are playing in them. I still think it's a pretty solid metric overall. But is it perfect? No, it's not. Dabo Swinney was 8-4 last year. 8-4. When 8-4 is a down year, you know how good you are? Very good. Very, very good. Remember, the year prior, Clemson was playing in a New Year's Six game. That's where they were. Those are the down years for Dabo Swinney. New Year's Six game, 9-4 season. Oh, by the way, they were 0-2 in overtime games last year. 0-2. 0-2. That's not that far away from being 2-0. People talk about one-possession games most often when discussing Nebraska because, well, they are the kings of one-possession games and losing them. But that's part of the reason I feel really good about Nebraska going into this year. I think they're going to be an 8-win team. Dylan Raiola is going to be better, I think, at quarterback than what they had a season ago. Jeff Sims was not the answer. They had a smorgasbord of guys, and yeah, it didn't go very well. I think Raiola will give them some level of stability. He'll make freshman mistakes, but that was a 5-win Nebraska team. They lost more close games, and the quarterback play was a big reason for it. Yeah, that's going to be worth a couple wins. It just is. So I think for, guys like that, Dabo Swinney and Lincoln Riley, you set the bar so high, and then you just get to this point where if you don't meet that bar every single year, you're no good. You're not a good coach. Like, Lincoln Riley couldn't beat Kyle Whittingham. This is an objective fact over the last couple of years. Kyle Whittingham is one of the best coaches in all of college football. Schools around the country have been trying to poach him away from Utah for a long, long time. He just doesn't want to leave. He likes it there. There are a lot of things to like. I live in Utah. It's a wonderful state. There are a lot of things to like about that area. And Whit clearly likes it there. But holding that over Lincoln Riley's head and saying, well, he can't even beat Kyle Whittingham. Wait. You can't beat one of the best pound-for-pound coaches in college football 3 years in a row, or 3 meetings in a row, and I'm supposed to think that makes you terrible? That makes you bad? Dan Lanning couldn't beat Kalen DeBoer 3 times in a row. He lost by 3 points. Do I think Dan Lanning's a bad coach? No. No, I'm going to go with no on that one. And remember, as Josh Pate often points out, someone who I'm a fan of in the college football content creation space, there is a difference between can't and hasn't. There was a point in time in which Kirby Smart had not beaten Nick Saban at Alabama. Does that mean he couldn't? No, we of course know that's not the case. Well, he can't do that. We'll see if a Lincoln Riley coach team can actually be improved defensively. That remains to be seen. I just think he's made a home run hire here, and they're going to have good personnel. And if you looked at the recruiting rankings for USC's defense over the last several years and their composite talent, do you think that's where they were lacking? Do you really think that's where USC was lacking? I don't think they hit their ceiling recruiting over the last couple of years with Lincoln Riley at the helm. They have not. They absolutely have not. But are they some talent-deprived team without starting capable players? No, I don't think so. So I get really annoyed at this recency bias. And I just want to point this out in the context of USC is a 6.5-point underdog in their game against LSU, which is at a neutral site in Las Vegas. Opening weekend. I believe it's being played on a Sunday. Look, I think LSU's done some nice things this offseason. They have not had a perfect offseason. They wanted to make more additions along the defensive line. And they didn't. They didn't get guys like Dominic Williams. And Caroline Fenton of Locked On LSU has been on this show talking about how, yeah, that's still a need. That's still something they're capable of improving. 6.5 points on a neutral site when that should be more USC fans at Allegiant Stadium than LSU fans. That feels disrespectful to me. That feels I would take USC plus 6.5 in that game every day in the week and twice on Sunday. So wanted to air that take out there. That felt like a good take to air. Bet on a guy who has gone 12, 12, 12, 10, 11, 8 in his win totals. He's never had a losing record in conference play, by the way. I don't anticipate that starting this season. Let's talk about FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. You can get your college football gambling fix as well. Here's what they've got at FanDuel. Everything your heart desires, frankly. Win totals, make the playoff, miss the playoff, conference championship odds, national championship odds, Heisman odds, individual games, everything you could possibly want. It's all over there. Go check it out. Even if you're not trying to gamble, there's just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff to look at, a lot of information over there. Colorado minus 8.5 against North Dakota State. Is that a trap game? I don't know. Maybe I'll talk about that on an upcoming episode of the show. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every playoff shot count. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and our official sportsbook sponsor here at the Locked On Network.